And welcome to a teaching session on understanding group living. So just let me remind you that this presentation is for informational purposes only. Refrain from copying what you see. Please try and ensure that you use some of your practice. So think about how you do and follow supporting group living within your job role. Think about residence meetings, thinking about conversations you have with the children and young people, and give examples of some of your practice when answering some of these questions. The first question we're going to be looking at is describe the theories about groups and group dynamics which relate to group living with children and young people. So I have put 4 theories up on screen here, which you can see, which is Tuckman's stage of group development, Bowlby's attachment theory, Bandura's social learning theory, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is not all of the theories that support and promote group living. So therefore, please feel free to research and allocate and talk about some additional theories that you might have found yourselves. So let's go through the theories I've got on screen here to help you have a bit more of an understanding of these theories. So one of the theories that I find relevant to residential is Bruce Tuckman's theory on group living. Bruce Tuckman was a psychologist that did multiple studies on group living and group dynamics. Through all of the research that Bruce undertook, he developed a theory called forming, storming, norming, and performing. So what he identified from all of his studies is that there is different stages that a group will go through before they are actually working together as a team. So the first stage he identified was the forming. So this is where the group members get to know each other, they'll make introductions, and it's finding out where, you know, they sit in that group. You know, you have children and young people and even staff members that are a bit more quieter, that are a bit more talkative, some that have a little bit more confidence. There's some that just sit and just take in all the information, and it's about assessing within themselves where they fit within this group. Try and think about when you support a young person that perhaps is transitioning into a home. Think about the dynamics and how this shifts. You know, you have to do risk assessments and impact risk assessments to support this new person coming into the home, and you have to monitor the new young person settling into the home. So think of the dynamics. Think about how this is apparent, how the young people that are perhaps settled into the home already have their established relationship, and then they've got this new young person which is coming in and which is now trying to have to fit themselves within this group. The next stage was storming. Bruce identified at this stage there was perhaps some conflicts that would happen. There may be some arguments, disagreements, but this is the stage of where the group are learning to get along with each other, learning about each other. So conflicts are likely to happen. Once it's all calmed down, it's then moving on to the norming stage. This is where the group is starting to work together. They're starting to share their own ideas, their values, and it's seemingly a little bit more smoother, and the transition has appeared to have settled down. So you'll have a bit more interaction with them. Everyone has a good understanding of where they are within the group and their roles, really. Once this norming stage has been achieved, the next stage is performing. And this is where Bruce has identified that this is the way you're going to get the most out of the group. They have an idea of where they sit within the group. They have an understanding of who each other are. And this is where you have the most efficiency come from this group and this group dynamic. So this is where you'll be achieving the most outcomes. So this in residential is where you have all the young people sitting down in the same room and working together to complete the young people's meeting or the residents' meeting. This is identifying that the group dynamic has got to this stage. They're able to articulate amongst one another, they're able to voice their opinions, they're able to take it in turns, and this is the stage of where we are striving to achieve, and this is the performing stage. Now, later on throughout the research, Bruce introduced a final stage, which was the adjourning stage, because as he identified all this work that happened between the group, as the group had to disperse, i.e. a young person was leaving the home, it actually caused upset. The young people would actually go through a feeling of mourning, it's a loss, whether the relationships were really, really amazing and they got on really well, or whether they were just tolerated each other. There still would be an element of loss within the group, because they have this feeling of strength together as a team now, and they're able to work together to get their wishes and feelings and views across about their home. So having that person removed from the dynamics, or having multiple people removed from the dynamics, caused a mourning period. But this is a really important stage for you to remember when you are supporting children and young people in residential care. The next theory I've put on there is John Bowlby's theory, and that's his attachment theory. Now, you will see John Bowlby's theory come across multiple times in this qualification, because it's a very important theory on attachment. John Bowlby identified that each young person, each child and young person, from birth all the way through their life, need to have one primary caregiver. This is one of the main reasons why you have key workers within your homes. Key workers are allocated key children to be that primary caregiver. Even though there's going to be multiple staff supporting that young person, it's really important for that young person to have that attachment with one particular staff member. It will allow the child or the young person to develop and grow. They'll feel security, they'll feel confidence, they will feel cared for, they will feel consistency. So Bowlby's theory identified that this attachment theory would actually support these positive relationships and a positive attachment, therefore trying to strive to achieve a secure attachment. By having a secure attachment or a positive attachment, it's quite difficult to get a secure attachment when you're in residential childcare due to the dynamics in the situation. But to try and have some form of positive attachment will then give the child or the young person more confidence when in this group dynamic. So Bowlby's theory is really quite relevant when we look at this. The next theory I put on this screen is Bandura's social theory. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about this, because I would actually like you to research this theory, because Bandura did a really interesting study on the Bobo doll. In a nutshell, he did some experiments on multiple children. Some of them he placed in a room which was where he had television programs on which were quite violent, aggressive, and then another group of children placed in a room where they were watching more nurturing, more loving TV programs, etc. After he subjected the children to these environments for a period of time, he then gave each of the children a Bobo doll to play with to see how they would treat the doll. The experiment was really interesting, so do go and have a look, research it and watch the experiment. But what he was identifying through this study was that children and young people will mimic and copy and almost take on the role of what they've been subjected to. Therefore, you have to always take into consideration that when children are living in a group dynamic, there is a likely possibility that they will take on each other's behaviours. Some of you may have already experienced this or seen this firsthand. So please be mindful when you are supporting children and young people. If there is a child that is displaying perhaps negative behaviours, you have to be aware and prepared that other children may mimic these behaviours. Having this understanding will support you to be able to have planned strategies in place should this start to happen, or even preventative measures to prevent it from happening. So do keep this in mind, and please do go and research this Bobo doll experiment. So the last theory I wanted to talk about was Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Again, please go and research this. This is a very, very relevant theory that you will be using throughout the qualification. Maslow's hierarchy of needs identified different stages of what a child needs to be able to develop. It's really important for children and young people to have their physiological needs met, safety needs met, love and belonging, esteem. Now, breaking this down, what Maslow has identified is that a child needs to be able to have food, water and shelter. They need to be able to feel secure and safe within their environment. They need to feel love, some form of connection and belonging, and they need to have self-esteem. So they need to be having positive praise and positive rewards, and supporting them to develop their own sort of well-being and resilience and confidence within themselves. What he identified is where there was a child that had not had at least one of these needs met. So, for example, they may well have had a roof over their head, water, food. They may well have felt safe and secure. They may well have even felt love or belonging. But if a child didn't have any self-esteem and was not given any self-esteem or praise or building of confidence, they wouldn't be able to progress any further. He identified that each child and young person had to be able to have all of these criteria met to be able to allow them to actually self-actualize, so develop further. This theory is really relevant as well throughout adults and children all over. So keep this in mind when you're covering other elements of the qualification, as Maslow's will crop up even in the team, working in a team unit. So I've just put on here to answer question 1.1, complete some further research on the theories on group living. And again, like I said, please ensure you're always linking this into your practice. There is multiple examples that you could give to link in these theories. The next question is summarising the theories about how the physical environment can support well-being in a group setting. So I've put up in here multiple theories around supporting the physical environment. It is really important. You and I will both be aware of how a residential home is decorated, first of all, thinking about how it is quite colourful and home-like. Think about all of the procedures you follow. So it's really important to try and implement this warm environment. It will support young people to settle into the home more easily, more comfortably. So think about the needs of each individual child as well. Think about if they might have sensory needs. They may need to have specific boundaries in place. They may need to have I don't know, rules around the home. One of the biggest things that I've found as well in time is we talk about sensory needs. I think from my experience and from research, I think that every home should have a beanbag or multiple beanbags. A beanbag is a very, very, very comforting object to use to support children when they when they've got ADHD, autism, when they're having a sensory overload, and even children that have been subjected to significant harm and abuse and have trauma. When a child or young person becomes irregulated, by having them be able to sit into a beanbag, it actually makes them feel secure, makes them feel supported. So things like this is things that you need to be thinking on when you're managing the physical environment. You will incorporate the children, get their wishes and feelings into what they want for their home. A big one as well for me is the keys. When staff are walking around, you make sure those keys are put away, please, because the children are aware of the dynamics. They're aware that they're in a residential home and a care home. They know that. But it's really, really important to be mindful of keys, having your keys jangling around, because we don't want the children to become institutionalized. Much like when you do the daily checks, need to be discreet. Try and be discreet when you're doing the fridge temp checks, or when you're doing the water temp checks, or when you're setting the fire alarm off. I know they have to attend fire drills for obviously health and safety purposes, but we can do this in a discreet way. This is their home at the end of the day, and everything you do within that home is gonna support them for their future, and we're always striving to have positive outcomes. So have a look at some of these theories, have a research, again, see if you can link them into some of your practices that you do within your job role. So again, I'll just put in there, to answer question 1.2, complete some further research on the theories, and you can link in practice where possible. Well, you should be able to link in practice quite comfortably, actually. So the next question we've got is, explain the importance of a collaborative approach in residential environment. So this one's quite a simple question to answer. One of your most important parts of your job role is to work together as a team. Dare I say the word consistency? Consistency is the most important thing that you can use to support these children and young people. It's having the consistency will ensure that children feel safe, they feel secure. Children need these boundaries in place. So where you've got a situation of, 3 shifts are adhering to the rules and the boundaries, and then 1 shift is not, it will create a level of instability for the child and young person, because they won't trust who is safe and who is not, because there's inconsistency. So consistency is really, really important. It's really important for you to deliver a holistic care. So identifying where other professionals may need to come and support, making sure you're sharing all relevant information with other professionals as well, such as social workers, IROs, working with the parents, where possible and where applicable, making sure that you're building that relationship up with the parents to support the young people to have positive outcomes. I've spoken about consistency very, very strongly, but within that consistency, you have to have a level of adaptability, because, as you well know, things change all of the time. So having boundaries and rules and consistency in place is one thing, but we have to be adaptable with those boundaries and with those rules, because children change, dynamics change, young people change. Look at COVID, for example. Look at the situation of where you've had young people who have been allowed to have free time or contact with their families, or able to go to school, or finally got them a school placement. Look how that big change in every single day life would have actually resulted in you having to change rules and boundaries, etc. Again, there's multiple examples on here, so try and link it into practice. Communication is a big key. Think about all the tools you use on a daily basis to ensure consistency. Handovers, debriefs, team meetings, all of these strategies are in place to support collaborative teamwork. So let's have a look at the next question. So it says, describe how planning daily living activities as a group links into the individual plans for children and young people. So I've spoken about the young people's meetings that you might incorporate into your daily practice. During your residents' meetings or young people's meetings, whichever you call it, there will be a category that you will discuss around activities. You will support the young people to make choices on what activities they would like to do, and whether they'll be doing that on their own or as a group. Again, dependent on the dynamics. It's at this point that you undertake the group activities as a communal thing, as a joint thing, to ensure that everybody has an understanding of what each of them are doing. We need to make sure that when we're planning activities, whether that's even doctor's appointments or or school or family contacts, that they do not interfere with any of the other young people's plans as well. So everything needs to be planned ahead of time. Think about all the every single day activities you do. You might do cultural theme nights, you might do beach trips, you may do board game nights, you may do Christmas together, you may do Easter egg hunts together, you may do barbecues at the weekend when the sun comes out. Think about how you do all of this planning and try and incorporate the children and young people to live together whilst doing so as well. It's important for us to build these relationships up between the young people, because it's difficult enough for them to be living in a house with strangers. So we need to try and make it as happy and joyful it can be. But the reason why we do all this is to individualise the child's needs, offers that tailored support. It all incorporates their personal goals. So maybe they want to join the gym, maybe they want to start going to a youth club, maybe they want to even have one-to-one with staff at the weekend. It could be anything. They might want to join a football club, but it will incorporate their personal goals. It promotes social interaction, obviously. If they're going to be going to youth clubs, social clubs, if they're going to be going to trampolining parks, it's all a social interaction there. Gives them that routine and that consistency, as we spoke about before. Again, effective communication. We're demonstrating that the child's wishes and feelings have been heard, and it's given that holistic delivery again and development for the child and young person. So the next question is, evaluate the impact of your own practice and behaviours on children and young people when you're supporting them with group living. So what I want you to do for this question is I want you to give me an example of your practice. I've put some key notes up on the screen there, so please feel free to use those as reference. But what I'm looking for in a reflective account. I want you to tell me or give me an example of how you actually support and promote group living. It could be that you undertake a residence meeting. It could be that there has been conflict between the young people and you've had to mediate this conflict or separate them. It might be that you have to transition a new person into the home and settle them in and introduce them to the new young people and to the original residents. It could be just monitoring the young people. Maybe as their new young persons resided in the home, there is some differences of opinions, and keeping an eye on them, making sure that they're sharing the TV, making sure that they're sitting down at the dinner table together, trying to make the home and the environment as comfortable as possible. That's what I need to be seeing at this point. And again, I've put on here role modelling. Now, I haven't spoken about this yet, but please be mindful when you're supporting and promoting group living, the children are watching you. They're watching everything you do. And evidently speaking, when we spoke about Bandura's theory of Bandura's social theory, they will mimic your behaviours as well. So when you are working within your team, you need to be really, really alert and mindful that these children are watching everything that you do. So if there's conflict between your team, there will be conflict between the young people. They will mimic these behaviours. You are a role model. You are there to show them how they are supposed to behave as adults. So please keep that at the front of your mind when you support these children. That's it. You've reached the end of your session. So complete your workbooks, and if you get them uploaded as soon as possible. If you have any questions, reach out. Thank you for attending.